Desperate Cambodian troops were forced to withdraw their precious M70 rocket launchers 150 kilometers to avoid airstrikes. In a statement on the afternoon of the 26th, a Thai army spokesperson could not hide his anger, stating that Cambodia's use of long-range rocket launchers constitutes a direct threat to national security, and that the Thai military is preparing corresponding retaliatory actions. On the front lines, Thai soldiers continue to operate a peculiar combination of Chinese-made PW-78 Recoilless rifles, Israeli machine guns, and American-made rifles, relentlessly unleashing firepower on Cambodian positions. The spark for the conflict was ignited on July the 16th. 3 Thai soldiers stepped on landmines in the disputed area, with one losing his right leg. Thailand accused Cambodia of violating the Ottawa Mine Ban Treaty, while Cambodia countered that the landmines were remnants from the 1980s war. A week later, Thailand downgraded diplomatic relations, and hostilities erupted. The underlying tensions stem from border disputes rooted in the 1904 French colonial era. In 1962, the Hague Tribunal ruled that the Preah Vihear Temple belonged to Cambodia, but the ownership of the surrounding 4.6 square kilometers of land remained unresolved. In 2024, the discovery of rare earth minerals worth $600 billion in the region ignited this powder keg. Political maneuvering followed. Thailand's former Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha was suspended over the phone call scandal, and acting Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha adopted a hardline stance toward Cambodia to secure military support. Cambodia's Hun Sen family, meanwhile, used the conflict to project an image of defending sovereignty. Interestingly, this war served as a testing ground for Chinese military equipment. Cambodia's 90B rocket launchers exchanged fire with Thailand's Chinese-made Senior 4 rocket launchers. Cambodia's R2 long-range artillery engaged in a steel dialogue with Thailand's WS-1B long-range artillery. China's diplomatic dilemma thus became evident. While calling for a peaceful resolution, Thailand insisted on bilateral talks only under the premise of territorial integrity, and rejected multilateral mediation. Meanwhile, the United States quietly made its move. The Pentagon lifted operational restrictions on F-16s and provided real-time data link support, turning Southeast Asia into a chessboard for great power rivalry. After the Cambodian military announced successful artillery strikes on Thai border positions in Surin Province and Sisaket Province, Thai forces continued to reinforce their troops late on the 25th. As of the 26th, both sides continued to engage in artillery exchanges under drone surveillance, with long-range rocket artillery targeting high-value objectives. Although Thailand deployed suicide squads in the early hours of the 25th to retake the strategic high ground of Eggplant Mountain, it did not gain a significant advantage in the overall artillery battle. Thai artillery primarily relied on towed howitzers and a small number of Israeli-made truck-mounted guns, while rocket artillery numbers were far fewer than those of the Cambodian military, which is equipped with Chinese weapons. The post-battle data was shocking: over 20 deaths and 100,000 civilians displaced. The image of Cambodian soldiers futilely dragging Soviet-made anti-aircraft guns to fire at the sky as Thai F-16s dropped American-made bombs on Cambodian positions became the saddest footnote of this conflict. The Cambodian 90B rocket artillery's first combat deployment validated the effectiveness of the hit-and-run strategy, while the precision strikes of the R2 long-range rocket rounds highlighted China's military industry's technological breakthroughs. However, even the most advanced individual weapons cannot compensate for systemic disparities. Without air superiority, a barrage of artillery fire is ultimately fleeting. The gunfire echoes through the tropical Rhine forest. The roar of the Type 81 machine guns wielded by bare-chested soldiers intertwines with the piercing screech of Chinese rocket artillery. Rare earth mines worth $600 billion are being stained by smoke and blood. Deep within the jungle, those automatically loading barrels and soaring fighter jets continue to await humanity's resolution of the century-old enmity through wisdom rather than gunpowder. The deeper implications lie in the fact that this incident has exposed a common dilemma faced by nuclear powers when concentrating strategic assets in geologically high-risk areas. The U.S. Pearl Harbor base and Japan's Yokosuka naval port are also located along the Pacific Ring of Fire, while France's Toulon naval port is adjacent to a geological fault line. Within 12 hours of the earthquake, Japan and the U.S. West Coast activated tsunami emergency responses. Hokkaido detected a 0.4-meter tsunami wave, and Hawaii's early warning system issued a destructive wave alert. Satellites and reconnaissance aircraft from multiple countries are intensively scanning the Kamchatka coastline to assess the extent of damage to Russia's nuclear capabilities. This disaster intelligence warfare reflects a new form of security competition natural disasters have become detectors of strategic vulnerabilities for major powers. The Russian military has not overlooked the defense of Vilyuchinsk. The newly completed bunker, completed in 2021, was designed to withstand a nuclear strike, theoretically capable of withstanding the blast shock of a million-ton nuclear warhead exploding a kilometer away. However, military engineering experts point out that there are fundamental differences between earthquake resistance and nuclear blast protection. Nuclear blast shockwaves occur in milliseconds, while earthquakes can last for several minutes and are accompanied by secondary disasters such as soil liquefaction and foundation subsidence. While current military building codes require structures to have blast-resistant and deformation-resistant capabilities, the specifics for defending against extremely strong earthquakes remain vague. The unique nature of submarine bases further complicates protective measures. The elastic floating docks built to isolate submarine noise could amplify shaking during an earthquake, and the underwater tunnels and waterway gates essential for submarine access have shown stress concentration risks in simulated earthquake tests. The latest submarine base optimization study proposes a vibration reduction lightweighting impact resistance 3-in-1 solution, utilizing artificial intelligence to optimize structural design. However, such technologies have not yet been applied in existing large-scale bases. This earthquake serves as a wake-up call for the global nuclear safety system. The Fukushima nuclear accident has demonstrated the compounding effects of natural disasters and nuclear crises, while the lack of transparency in disaster data from military nuclear facilities due to confidentiality further exacerbates international concerns. Countries like Russia and the US have never publicly released complete seismic stress test data for their nuclear bases, and there is no cross-border joint nuclear accident emergency response mechanism. Climate change further complicates the issue. Rising sea levels make coastal bases more vulnerable to tsunamis, while permafrost melting threatens the foundation stability of Russia's northern fleet bases. To avoid the threat of a catastrophic nuclear accident that endangers humanity's shared future, 3 reforms are needed: mandating the upgrading of global nuclear facility disaster resistance standards to include once-in-a-millennium disasters and design parameters, establishing transnational monitoring corridors for military nuclear facilities to enable the sharing of critical disaster data, and creating a nuclear safety green shield multinational emergency response force to overcome political barriers and enable rapid rescue operations. When Putin touched the emblem of the North Wind God at the Northern Fleet headquarters, the ground beneath his feet was still stable, but thousands of kilometers away, the tremors in the Far East's crust were shattering humanity's illusions of absolute safety. The fate of the Vilyuchinsk base remains undecided, but this earthquake has exposed the hidden cracks in the modern nuclear deterrence system. When great powers stake the survival of civilization on steel behemoths, they forget that the planet itself, which forged these behemoths, is the ultimate arbiter of the rules. Amid the roar of the waves in Kamchatka, an ancient truth grows ever clearer: the nuclear button may define the boundaries of power, but it cannot suppress the roar of tectonic plates. True strategic security begins with the deepest reverence for nature.